Welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones and we are so glad to have you here. Summer is here, and while many are headed out on vacation, lawmakers are still tying up loose ends in Trenton. Assemblyman Gerry Scharfenberger, who represents New Jersey's 13th legislative district, is standing by to talk about some of the hot topics from the State House. First, PSEG is one of the companies that literally powers New Jersey. In addition to being a utility providing electricity and natural gas, they also have a direct impact on the community. Maria Spina, manager of the PSEG Foundation, spoke to me about how the foundation is supporting the community. Here now is some of that conversation. Maria, it is so good to see you here in our studio.
Thank you, Laura. It's wonderful to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about the PSEG Foundation.
Oh, absolutely, because when people think PSEG, they think, oh, well, that's my utility bill. But there's so much more to what it is you do. Can you tell us a little bit about the PSEG Foundation?
Sure, absolutely. And you're right. Oftentimes people do correlate the company with the utility, and it's natural. It's a natural inclination, especially here in New Jersey. But what I do with the foundation is so much more than obviously supporting our business. We invest in our communities. That's really at the heart of what we do, and it's really about uplifting communities, providing economic support, and all of that is done through our strategic foundation pillars. In terms of our presence, we're throughout New Jersey and on Long Island, and our giving pillars focus on social justice, environmental sustainability, and equity and economic empowerment. And we try to support organizations where we want to meet them with their needs because they really are the voice of the community. Another piece of what the foundation does is support our employee giving programs. Our employees are very active in the community. They volunteer with organizations, they serve on boards, and they're also very generous with their donations. And the PSEG Foundation matches employee donations.
All right, so can you tell me a little bit about what it is you do at PSEG Foundation?
Sure. So I oversee the day-to-day operations of those programs, connect with those organizations, really hear about where there's the greatest need from our organizations, and try to partner our internal and external stakeholders at best so that we're supporting them. We recently had a program announcement. It's called our Neighborhood Partners Program.
Right. Yep, the Neighborhood Partners Program, yes.
Neighborhood Partners Program, and that's a program which allows us to support our organizations that are having an impact on a grassroots level. These are organizations that really are in tune to the needs of the community, many different types of initiatives that they're supporting with grants that range from $500 to $15,000.
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit about the Neighborhood Partner Program? Are these nonprofits in the community? Who is eligible? How do you guys partner together? How does it all work?
Sure. They are 501c3 nonprofits. Again, they're out throughout New Jersey and on Long Island as well. That's where our footprint is. And in terms of the types of organizations, these are organizations that are providing out-of-school time support for students, STEM education, social service organizations, organizations that provide basic needs for our communities. I mean, it runs the gamut in terms of the types of organizations. Environmental organizations. For example, this past year we funded, I'll name a few of them just to kind of put some light, Cathedral Soup Kitchen in Camden. They provide culinary training for their clients. Great Swamp Watershed is another organization that provides environmental education for students. Those are the types of programs that we fund. And in fact, we announced our application opening on June 1st, and it closes on June 30th. And this is our 10th year, so really excited about that because we've been funding this program just about a little under $6.7 million. Oh, wow. And to about 390 organizations. And this year we've had a 20% increase in our allotment of funding, so we're awarding $1.2 million this year. Really excited about that.
When I'm at community events, when you're out and about, you often see that PSEG logo on community fairs, at neighborhood events and such. So, like, if an organization or a group is interested, or if they need some help, like, how do they go about finding you and finding out what resources are available, or how to go about applying to get some of this help? Because there are probably some amazing programs that could use your support, and are you all like going out aggressively looking for these kind of programs as well? So how does that work, if you could share with the audience?
Sure, we do it in two ways. There's organizations we partner with, we have long-standing support, but then there's organizations that are unsolicited. They come, they reach out to our public affairs team, they reach out to folks who work in PSEG, how do we get support? They do a little bit of scouting on our website because all of our information is available on our website. And then we work with partner organizations that share some of the information out through e-blasts, and a lot of it is word of mouth too. The nonprofit community is very small, so a lot of organizations know of each other, their leadership, and so through that network, that's where we ensure that the word is getting out. We also partner with organizations like the Center for Nonprofits and Council of New Jersey Grantmakers to spread the word on these opportunities.
Yeah. There's one I'm particularly interested in. You partnered with the Sesame Workshop,
Yes.
and it was called Little Neighbors. Is that
Yes,
correct? Can you
that's-
tell me about that?
Sure, this is our 10th year partnering with the Sesame Workshop.
That's so cool.
It is, it's exciting.
Did you get to meet like Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch or any of those?
Elmo.
You got to meet Elmo? Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay,
Elmo.
I would take
and
that.
a few characters over the years too.
Nice,
Really
nice.
exciting.
Yeah.
But it's our 10 years supporting the Sesame Workshop. They created content for us 10 years ago, just after Hurricane Sandy, started with disaster and emergency preparedness, and our programming has evolved over the years. A few years ago, we announced a program called the Little Neighbors Program, and recently, on June 5th, so just last week, on World Environment Day, we announced some new resources that are available through the Little Neighbors Program.
Wow. So this is also about reaching young people. I mean, because you mentioned a little bit about STEM and education. So can you talk a little bit about, again, things that you're reaching? You don't necessarily think of Sesame Street and Elmo, you know,
Yes.
partnering together. So what is it that, you know, can you
Sure.
dive into that a little bit more?
Sure. Well, let me start and say that the Sesame brand is a respected brand globally, and that I think is really important in terms of our partnership. And what does that mean? They have key messages that can relate to young people. They are best at relating to young people, putting forth a caring, respecting message that young people can relate to, families can relate to. This particular content that was created is focused on the environment and how young people can really learn about some of the fundamentals and bring it back to their communities. And when we talk about young people, these are 1 to 6 years old, but it's really about embracing the whole family unit that can share in that piece of information.
Yeah, yeah. And then ultimately, you know, getting young people aware to maybe that'll shift the mindset of looking at PSEG and not thinking, oh, that's just where I have to pay my bills. So
Not
can
at
you talk
all.
about that shift of education and getting young people to be interested and enthusiastic about
Sure.
this?
And Sesame is just one of the partners. STEM education overall, it actually folds very nicely across all of our strategic pillars because it's important. We're trying to ensure that we're supporting our communities in ways that's investing in future education because they are our future workforce.
That's what I was thinking. I was where kind of going. These are your future, not just customers, but
Right.
your future employees as
Exactly.
well. Yeah. So you were talking about the different pillars. Can you talk a little bit more about what these pillars are and what they represent and what it is that their mission is in trying to accomplish?
Sure. So through our environmental sustainability pillar, we try to work with organizations that really raise awareness on the importance of the environment holistically. That could be educational environment, raising awareness around the importance of caring for their own community, having young people learn about the ecosystem, many different ways when we think about the environment that fall under that, including our energy infrastructure as well. The second piece, equity and economic empowerment, is really about supporting communities in a way that revitalizes them, uplifts them, and provides the resources that are needed for our communities. And then social justice is really also about raising awareness from the perspective of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, in ensuring that people understand that there are no elements to or boundaries to that we're supporting our communities holistically.
Yeah, and the foundation, you said you've been in existence for 10 years?
We've
Or-
been in existence for 25 years.
25 years.
25
okay.
plus years.
Okay, you've been there.
Yes.
Okay, all right, yeah, yeah. Are there any projects throughout the years or any organizations that you've partnered with that you'd like to share with our audience, and just to kind of, you know, bring home some examples of not just here's a program on a website and a few pictures, but, you know, people maybe you've connected with and stories that you feel like, wow, what I do is making a difference.
Sure. There's so many that come to mind. It's interesting because when I think about through our Neighborhood Partners program, there's so many partners that come to mind. For example, Great Swamp Watershed is an organization. Arbor Day, New Jersey Tree Foundation. I'll touch on that actually because the way we partner with the Arbor Day Foundation and the New Jersey Tree Foundation is literally planting trees, making sure that communities have trees in their community for not only beautification, but also from the angle of taking care of the environment. And so we partnered recently around Arbor Day and Earth Day. Nice. We had employees go out to Gloucester City and plant trees down in that community. We also, on a larger scale, partner with organizations like Montclair State University's Institute of Sustainable Studies, many different universities, New Jersey Institute of Technology, Stevens Institute of Technology. I mean, it runs the gamut. Rutgers, of course. But these are institutions where we're providing support for young people to receive scholarship opportunities, to really engage with their community, have that hands-on learning experience.
Do you have any projects or any other things that are coming up over the summer or the next few weeks next few months that you're particularly excited about, or that you'd like to share with the audience that you would like to make sure that's on their radar or just looking forward to?
Sure. So in terms of the items I mentioned, the Neighborhood Partners Program, that's current. It's running until June 30th, and we'll announce the grants in September, so that'll be ongoing. Sesame Workshop, we launched that, but these resources and content are available for educators, for families, and that's something really exciting because now is really when the work begins. We want to make sure that those resources are available to everyone. And then something that's kind of ongoing is supporting our employees, as I mentioned earlier. Our Power of Giving program, we have employees who are actively volunteering. Last year, for example, we had our employees volunteered 25,000 volunteer hours.
Wow.
So that's ongoing. That's throughout the year, partnering with organizations where our employees can be active.
Oh, nice.
And they do it independently on their own too.
Well, I was going to ask, are they able to do that and not be penalized for taking off work? That's part of what you offer.
Correct.
To give back.
Yes.
Oh, that must be nice.
They do it on their own time. They do it on company time, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. If anybody wants to, as we're closing out this segment, to get any more information, where can they go to find out more information about the PSEG Foundation, what you do, what resources may be available to them, their nonprofit, their community?
Sure. So first and foremost is our website, pseg.com. There's a section under there under corporate social responsibility. The foundation is under corporate social responsibility, and also read our press releases. There's a lot of information out there, and we put a lot of information out there about all the good stuff we're doing, and we want to make sure that the communities know that.
Maria, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about the PSEG Foundation.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Joining me now is Assemblyman Gerry Scharfenberger, who represents New Jersey's 13th Legislative District. Assemblyman, it's good to see you from Monmouth County.
Good to see you, Laura. Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, always a pleasure, always a pleasure. So it is the season, summertime in New Jersey. Kids are out of school, but before you know it, they'll be returning, and they could have a different experience come the fall once they're back in school, because Governor Murphy's budget really slashes a lot of state dollars for many school districts. So can you tell to us a little bit about what's happening in your district?
Well, in our district, we did not fare quite as badly as a lot of districts. We had one school district that got hit pretty hard, and I know around the state, I think there were about 140 school districts that saw significant cuts. And this is very, very difficult for a lot of the local districts to be able to accommodate. And we're hearing a lot from these districts that they need to have some sort of replacement of those funds, or else they won't be able to function without draconian cuts or slashes to services. Certainly personnel would have to be sacrificed. So it is a very, very troubling situation, and we're hoping that we can work something out at the 11th hour with the budget.
Well, I mean, it is a complex issue because, add to regular services that you still have a lot of students who are trying to close that learning gap from COVID. And again, you have students who have special needs. You have others that are gifted and talented, your mainstream students. What can the legislature do? Do you see if there's a solution to help these districts who are really struggling right now?
Well, we're hoping, a lot of us put in for returning the cuts to a lot of these school districts. And you mentioned it too, that there are a lot of specialized sort of expenditures that have increased, even if the student population has decreased in some areas. ESL, which is English as a second language students, special education students, sometimes grow even if the overall student body decreases. And that's what we're seeing those cuts affect mostly. So we're hoping to reach some sort of compromise where we can restore the funding to reasonable levels that would blunt a lot of the actions that would need to be taken, such as the draconian cuts and so on.
There are some colleagues in the legislature, when you look at your thoughts on the budget overall, and especially when it comes to school, that says, what we're doing just this year in the budget isn't enough, because, you're mentioning some of those services, ALS services being cut. And they're saying, well, you know what, we really need to go and you need to look at the school formula and that the funding formula, and that needs to be reformulated.
Absolutely. And the school funding formula is very complex. We really haven't been able to ascertain exactly what that formula is and how they arrive at some of these numbers. A lot of it is based on student population. And the problem with basing funding on the student numbers like that is if there's a drop of a few students per year, it's not always reflected in the contractual obligations, the statutory obligations that a school still has, even if the numbers on paper have decreased from year to year. So the funding formula definitely is an issue. We need to get back to the basics of it and get a more fair and equitable funding formula for New Jersey, or else we're going to repeat this year after year.
Yeah, and when I was at the governor's budget address back in the winter time, there was historic amount of money going to education. It isn't always going to these school districts. So where is it going? Is it going to more urban areas? Are you able to kind of pinpoint where the money is going? Because we are spending billions of dollars in education.
Well, certainly some districts have done quite well. Some of the urban districts have gotten significant increases in funding, or at least stayed flat and didn't have to sustain any cuts. And the problem with that is sometimes issues with school and education aren't always tied to dollars. Sometimes there's other issues that have to be dealt with that aren't financial. So that's why just throwing money at certain districts may not improve outcomes. And that's another thing we have to look at when we're talking about school funding formulas and a system that would really create equitable funding for true education and not ignore the extraneous situations that sometimes play into educational outcomes.
Yeah, and when I was first starting out as a reporter, I remember one of the biggest court cases, it was the Abbott versus Burke Supreme Court decision, suburban versus urban schools, and looking at that, to level the playing field, give more monies to the urban districts as opposed to the suburban. And a lot of that data said throwing money at the issues wasn't always the solution. And we could probably spend this entire segment just talking about education, but I know we want to cover a lot of topics there. And I want to also kind of switch gears a little bit. Switch gears in driving to the governor's electric vehicle EV mandate. So by 2035, all newly sold cars and light-duty trucks in the state are going to need to be either battery, electric, plug-in hybrids, or fuel cell vehicles. And people are split on this because the cost of EVs is so expensive. So can you tell us a little bit what the legislature is doing to perhaps even take action? Are they looking to delay, cancel the mandate? What's going on in Trenton?
Well, certainly some of us in the legislature have called for to undo the mandate altogether. And the problem with mandating these sort of things, you're trying to tinker with the market. The marketplace should bear this sort of change. And if folks really wanted to buy electric vehicles, they'd be lined up to buy them. Now, electric vehicles, and it's not to say that they're good or bad, it's just mandating people to buy them. And we've seen instances where electric vehicles have really been problematic, and that's why they really haven't taken off in the marketplace. We know that Hertz Rental has recently sold 20,000 electric vehicles. Why? Because customers simply don't want to rent them. We're concerned with fire hazards too. There are private garages, especially in New York City, that will not allow electric vehicles to be parked in their garages. Why? Because the batteries have a tendency to go on fire, and they're very difficult to put out. So all of these issues have to be addressed before you can really force this on anyone. Make it as attractive as possible from a marketing standpoint, and people will buy it if they're so inclined. But we see nothing but problems if this is left unattended. 2035 is will be here quicker than we know. We don't think the electric grid can handle all electrification of not only cars, but buildings and every other aspect of our lives. So there's a lot of things that have to be put into place before this can be instituted. And we're hoping between now and then, and we've even seen a few states roll this back. So there is precedent for New Jersey pulling it back also. So we're going to keep the pressure on to undo this and really take a hard look at this sort of issue before you mandate people's purchases.
Well, and that's the other thing is people may not be opposed to electric vehicles, but it's just getting past that, mental block of, listen, like seriously, I forget to charge my own cell phone. And that's a scary thought, being out on a road trip and thinking, okay, wait, do I need to make a reservation? Like, what do I need to do? It's again, not necessarily that people oppose electric vehicles. It's the unknown. How long do the batteries last? Am I going to have a charging station? What happens if I get stranded? I think those are real issues, and it isn't necessarily against electric vehicles. Is that what you're trying to communicate?
Absolutely, and it's impractical for a lot of people. I know myself, when I drive to Trenton for a voting session and I stop to get gas, I'm in and out in a minute.
Right.
I don't have several hours to wait for the car to recharge. So I drive a hybrid. I've driven it for 20 years before it was fashionable, and I absolutely love it. And it gets really good gas mileage. It's very good for the environment. And I think some sort of hybrid process for our energy needs is what we need. And in fact, an all of the above type approach would be best. And certainly mandating these sort of things is going to get not only resentment from the electorate, but also it's just not going to be workable. And we need a workable, reliable system of energy for the state.
Yeah. Well, you represent part of the Jersey Shore where wind turbines are a big issue for many living there. So can you talk a little bit about what you're hearing? Where do you stand? We had some projects that have been canceled. What can you tell us while we're on the topic of going green, being a little bit more green and environmentally conscious?
Yes, and that's a very good question. It's a big issue in my district here, and we've been dealing with it for a little over a year now since the first reports of the offshore wind projects and the leases that were assigned first came to be. And a lot of people are very concerned for very different reasons. And when you get multiple constituencies like that concerned, you really have to take notice. And certainly commercial and recreational fishermen are very concerned about this. Certainly tourism is a major part of the state. We get over $38 billion or generate over $38 billion in revenue per year through tourism. And a big part of that is the Jersey Shore here. And there's concerns that tourism along the Jersey Shore could drop as much as 30% when the wind turbine farms, and we're talking about thousands of wind turbines that are bigger than the Statue of Liberty, 10 miles offshore, certainly within view. So there's a lot of concerns out that from businesses, the tourism industry in general, recreational, commercial fishermen, folks who live along there. And there's even sort of silent issues like beach replenishment that would be impacted by the cables that would have to be run from the wind turbines into the shore. And another thing, too, to keep in mind, they're not totally green when you consider the amount of oil that it takes to operate the wind turbines. And this all ends up leaching into the water. So there are numerous concerns we have, certainly the impact on marine life that we've seen over the past year or so, past few months. So all of these things, we haven't really gotten satisfactory answers. We're concerned about the cost of the ratepayers to pay for all of this in the end. So there are any number of big issues that have to be resolved before we can even consider getting behind this whole project.
Well, and it is interesting when you talk about some of these issues that you think, oh, well, these are green issues, that you have environmental groups that will come out and say, wait a minute, not so fast. It may not be as green as you think it is. And then, just kind of final thoughts here. You mentioned it's a $38 billion industry. Travel and tourism is one of the biggest economic drivers in the state, not only affecting the Jersey Shore, but our state income, where you get that budget, where we are able to pay for things in the state. So this is not a small industry to mess with when it comes to New Jersey. And we've got a short season, a short amount of time to be able to make that money. And people come from all over to enjoy our beautiful shores.
Absolutely. And, it's something we can't outsource, which we're very fortunate. We have heritage tourism, we have the Jersey Shore, all of the great sites around this beautiful state. But they're all threatened when you upset the balance the way we're looking at it being upset. So we really have to do what's best for New Jersey overall. Everybody wants a cleaner environment, but we want a sensible environment too, and we want a sensible system to get there.
Yeah. Well, Assemblyman, we thank you so much for taking the time to talk about all of these topics and to share a little bit about what's going on in Trenton and where you stand on the issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And that will do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.